Báilte agus beannacht. Hello and welcome to Resurrection of the Irish Wisdom School Global Online Gathering, where we are retrieving the Irish and the Indigenous ways. And this event is a 5-day gathering consisting of Shanachie storytellers, wisdom keepers, and divine guides who are keeping the sacred flame alight for humanity by being voices for Ireland and our lands. So this gathering is a divine offering to the great motherland of Éirú, Ireland, for she aches for her stories to be told, for her secrets to be shared. And the emerald crystalline heart of Éirú welcomes you home to her primordial roots, to her riches and her wealth. And I'm your host, Eimear Stassin, and I do invite you to tar isteach agus lig the ski. Come on in and relax into this space, because I'm so delighted to welcome today's soulful speaker, Kerry McCrory. Hi, Kerry.
Hello, Eimear. Thank you so much for inviting me to your summit. Thank you for including the Sperrins.
Well, the Sperrins have to be in this as part of the resurrection of the wisdom that's emerging now. And I'm so honoured you're here and also so excited to explore your topic, which is the sacred Sperrins, ancient light, dark skies, and elemental Croí. Oh, it gives me tingles. So first of all, Kerry, would you like to say a few words about yourself? Who are you now in this moment?
Hello, everyone. I'm Kerry McCrory, and who am I in this moment? I am rooted. I'm going to say I am rooted in the Sperrins in this moment, in my home, in a beautiful valley, a beautiful valley known as Coniglen. Here to expand on the Sperrins. I was born and raised in the Isle of Man for the first 6 or 7 years of my life. And whenever my mum and dad came back to Ireland to live, we would have lived on the lower lands, much more the outer reach of the Sperrins, which was flatter, where you wouldn't have actually seen the mountains or the Sperrins. But whenever I would have went to secondary school in Omagh, everybody would have talked of the Sperrins and everybody knew of the Sperrins. But what I would say about the Sperrins is it wasn't until my later teens, whenever I was actually 19 years old, when I met my boyfriend. He's my husband now, but my boyfriend at the time. And I remember taking the journey to go to his home, which is in a place called Greencastle. And I'll never forget it, because as we were driving out the road, all of a sudden, instead of just the flat landscape, the road started to go like this, nearly like a snake, nearly. And that astounded me. So I remember, oh my God, look at these roads, you know. But anyway, we would have come to the village of Greencastle where he lived, and his ancestors, so this would have been his granny and granddad and his father, were reared in another area, which is more 5 miles into a valley known as Coniglen. And I actually remember the very first time, whenever it was so rural and rugged, the roads become like lanes. They're one, and I had never seen nothing like this in my life. And you know, it's sort of funny in a way, because I remember the very first time at 19 years of age when he took me there. And at that time of your life, you're more concerned with maybe going till a nightclub. Things like that, you know. But I remember the first time he took me up here, I actually remember thinking, I don't know why, but I remember thinking, I would never ever live here because it was just like remote. It was in the middle of nowhere and there was nothing but nature and rivers and so that was my first introduction to the Sperrins,
Wow.
that particular landscape.
Oh, that's so amazing. And it's never say never. I would
Yeah,
never.
that was a lesson as well. Usually I eat my words. Anything that I say I'll never do, I eat my words.
So would you like to share with people more about the Sperrins? So what are they and what's your connection to this sacred space?
Yeah, the Sperrins are the most vast mountains in the whole of Ireland. So maybe not everybody is aware of this, that they're not the tallest. The tallest mountain would be in County Kerry, but they're the most vast and the most expansive. And they actually spread over three different counties, three different council bodies in particular. So they fall into the council body of Omagh and Fermanagh, of Mid Ulster, which would be Cookstown, and the Derry Strabane. So that's how vast that they actually are. They're very expansive. And what else would I say? Yeah, well, this is more about the whole of Ireland itself as a rock, that the island of Ireland comes from two different continents, and they know this from the geology and that depth of study. So that some of the rocks actually come more from the America sides and other rocks come from the Europe side. So even with the fusion of Ireland as an island, you have this merging of I'm just going to use the word energy. Different elemental parts of the planet have actually come together to form that structure. And I would say that in itself, that creation has brought something very unique to the energy of the land that we actually work on, that maybe our highest eternal parts can sense this. So you have that. And the other thing about the Sperrins as well, sort of like we think of like the Alps, they're tall and they're pointy, but the Sperrins are so ancient that they're actually coming down slowly. And as they're coming down, this is why we have these lovely curves, this lovely, like soft rolling hills, like this expansiveness to the Sperrins. And also, obviously, because of that, there is a lot of very, through time and space and creation, a very lot of minerals, very precious minerals, and that content in the mountains. But on another level, what I would say as well, and I love this level, and I heard it on a talk on a summit recently, but I can't exactly remember the lady's name. But what I remember she said, and I remember thinking, yes, this is true, this is right. What she actually said was like, our mountains everywhere, the mountains of the world, these are our libraries. They store everything. Yeah. Uh-huh. So that there, what I would say about the Sperrins as well is because of the mineral content, for a long time in Northern Ireland, because we experienced the Troubles in Northern Ireland, because of that, no explosives. We weren't even allowed to have fireworks for years and years and years and years. And in a way, because of that, our rolling hills and landscapes remained protected and remained in peace, just, left with the local people living their everyday lives, the people who had come down from generation. So now, because the peace process and the troubles are over, there's another aspect of our mountains have become threatened with mining. So big industry. And I think this has happened to a lot of sacred sites and places on the whole earth, the whole planet, that the resources and the resources and their whole relationship with the earth and what they give has been, the areas have been so very, very threatened. That's another thing that's sort of like, so maybe a lot of like people who live in the lower lands, a bit like I was myself, they don't actually realize the beauty, just like the absolute beauty and uniqueness of this rock that we live on, So there's a bit of that going on, but there's also, to me, like, there's different eras when it comes to the history of the Sperrins. It's like there's like an era, and in this particular glen, that era would be more connected till a few hundred years ago, the 1600s, the 1700s. We went through an era where because there was like warring and claim of land and ownership, there was feuding going on, and because of the feuding going on, there was a clan known as the O'Neills. So they would have had the O'Neills in Tyrone. You would have had the O'Donnells in Donegal. You would have had, the different clans, the different people who were going about their lives. And you had the state in England who wanted a particular interest and ownership in the land as well, and you had Spain, you had a lot of places who sort of had their I'm going to say their finger in the pie nearly, and the Ireland, the Eru pie. I want a bit. But anyway, the O'Neill clan, they would have hired some people from Scotland, and they would have been known as mercenaries. So they would have sort of been happy to do things for a price. So a lot of that clan, that the O'Neills actually paid them to come over and to help them to win their win their battles. And the people, because that's what places do to people, you fall in love with them. So the people began to merge and mix together. And because of that element as well, you would have that Ulster Scotch, and that came into being as well. So I know in my own family in particular, Eimear, that my husband has both sides in him. So his granny would have been an O'Neill, on his one side, and then his father would have been McCrory. And a lot of people that had fought centuries ago, instead of keeping their name to maybe McCrory, they would have changed their name. So they would have changed their name to McRory or ORY, or the other one might have been Rogers. They would have been like variations. And so there was an element there as well that maybe because of the past history, there was like a dissociation that, I don't know if that's gonna, so there's so much history, so much history
Yeah.
in the Sperrins.
That is so fascinating. And I was getting tingles as you were speaking, particularly about the rocks that have merged from east and west, merging to create the bedrock of Éirú, and then the people from Scotland, Ireland, the merging of the people as well to create this almost like this new race of people that are inhabiting Ireland now, and thank you so much for sharing all of that and the sacredness of the rocks, the minerals, and then what's unfolding now after the peace process of that. People want to come in now and mine and take and extract. So you mentioned then at 19, when you first arrived in Coney Glen on a trip, and that thought of, I would never live in a place like this. And now this is the place where you live. So what was it that drew you then back to Coney Glen in particular and the sacred Sperrins?
Yeah. Well, initially, whenever we lived together and married, we were in Oma for 13 years. And we were actually married about 7 years, 6, 7 years when we decided to build a home in Coniglen. And if I am very honest with everybody here, initially, the reason for me, this is what it is, was I could have a bigger house. So we were
Knew you
living
were
in a
going to say that.
we were living in a semi-detached in Oma, and I remember thinking, oh, more space, a bigger house, and so that was the drawer. So I'm actually going to use the word initially. It was not my spirit. Initially, it was the seed would have been the wee material element. But as we began to build our house, first of all, it took a lot of years. It took 3 years, nearly almost, to get planning permission, because the area we live in is an area of outstanding natural beauty, and there was a lot of legislation and different things. So as time unfolded and we built, we were in the midst of actually building our home. And it was actually during that process, Eimear, building the home, that my husband used to say to me, it's actually more what I used to say to him. I used to say to him, whatever he had said to me, I used to say to him, I'm not going to worry about the building of the house, because I was going through some stress. I had a business. I had a full-time business, and I was busy, and I was pregnant. And I was actually pregnant with my third child. And because so much was going on, I remember handing it over to him and saying, I'm not going to worry about this. I look forward to the day the windows go in. And this is what I repeated to him a few times during the pregnancy. But then as the pregnancy progressed, and just maybe about half a week before the birth of my baby, I remember, I was just starting to notice, God, the baby's slow, and different things had slowed down, different things were happening. And if I don't, I'm not going into it too deeply here, but what actually happened was whenever I had Liam, he was very unexpectedly stillborn. So he was stillborn at the end of the pregnancy. And, you know, you can imagine the shock, the not expecting this to happen. You know, you don't expect to go through something and nurture your living, feeling baby inside your womb space, and then, you know, and after I had him, I remember in my heart, there was part of me that wanted him buried, sort of quite, you know, within the 3 days, like we do as a tradition in Ireland. So part of me wanted him buried then, and I remember that feeling. But we had actually went back to the hospital mortuary to pick his wee body up and to take him to be buried. And there was sort of like, there was this, like, in my heart, I knew he was to be buried in Greencastle. You know, this was where, even though we hadn't moved into our home at this stage, I knew this is where he is to be buried. This is where I wanted him to be. There was no question about it. And on that particular day, on the way to the burial ground, I actually remember seeing my first conscious rainbow in the sky. And I remember seeing the rainbow and just having the thought, that's God talking to somebody when they're sad, and not really thinking too much about it. And we went ahead and we buried him that day. But that day is also the day that the windows were going into our house. Yeah. So that was something, you know, so that was sort of very strange, very uncanny that I had said during the building of the house, I look forward to the day the windows go in. And it was the only comment I ever made, and I made it a few times, and I didn't quite understand that. But what I understand now on a much deeper level, you know, looking back, that, you know, that day it was like I was given new windows, like these, my eyes, that the windows of the soul, which it is that for all of us, these were changed forever. And what I would say is, even though initially it was materialistic, that was gone. And the whole journey to do with Coniglen and the Sperrins. And I hadn't even moved into the house at this stage. You have to remember I'm in that transition stage of the building of the house. But it was like the transition, it was nearly like Spirit called me back. And we knew that he was to be buried with the ancestors. So this is another very important part. The people, the last people who had lived in Coniglen before we come back. So what I would say as well about this area, so this glen, it's like 3 miles in the bottom and a few more miles on the top. And it's sort of like a figure of 8, nearly a wee bit the way the mountain slopes and the mountain is. And this valley, for the last couple of 100 years, up until say maybe, say the 1800s, the early 1900s, this valley would have been thriving and busy with people. There would have been a lot of wee houses dotted around the glen. but everybody had sort of left this glen, and what had happened is either they had emigrated or they had died. You know, that a lot of sons never married, and maybe it was too late to get married by the time they didn't marry, maybe because the farmland. So maybe by the time their mother passed away, they were too old and didn't marry. So between the bachelors dying and the people emigrating, there was just one other family in this glen who live across the river, across the glen. And then our house was like the first new house being built in the glen in over 100 years. Because I remember my husband used to say this to me, you know. So it was almost as if like the glen just like instantly the Sperrins took me in on a different level. And that happened in 2006. So that happened in 2006, but even though that happened then, a lot of things transpired. I was still a full-time businesswoman and I had people working for me. And because of having a full-time business, and I had two beautiful girls as well, like two beautiful, stunning daughters, and they were only 5, and Kaylee wasn't even 2 whenever, Liam, the third, was born. And because of that, you were busy. Still, so it wasn't until I closed that business. Well, no, that's not totally true, because things did happen to me. But the whole nature element, we got to a stage after I closed my business where, it's like when you walk, the energy, the light from the area, it fills you up. Like nature and being in the cycles of nature, how it sinks back into the ground, but how the new life always comes forth. This is something that is so, it's embedded in us whenever we witness this going on in nature, that it's like the mother holding us. It's like the mother healing us. But I did have like a lot of experiences connected to the sacred rainbow in particular. And I'll maybe not talk about that totally, because that would just go on and on and on. But that became a very sacred element of the way the light shines in the Sperrins. And, years and years later, I did a wee bit of Airbnb here to prove to the councils and the governments, look, we don't want industry here. People value these places. They want to come here and they want to visit and they want to stay here. And I've had people like from Australia and all different places. And it's really interesting the amount of people who pick up on this, they come into this radius of the Sperrins, and it might be about 6 or 7 miles or 5, 6 miles out of the very central Sperrins. But, I've had people say as soon as it's sort of like you drive over a certain threshold and everything changes. And I'm on about people who've lived in cities as well. And it's like, but it changed. It changed when I got there. I just all of a sudden they're in love with Ireland whenever they hit the space of the mountains. And I'm sure that happens with a lot of our mountains all around the island. But yeah, it's it was a deep connection, Eimear. Yeah. It wasn't foreseen, but I sort of felt very very quick, even upon coming here, living here, that, I felt protected by the glen. I felt safe by it. And whenever I say that, it's sort of like the way I'll explain that is I remember at a stage I was walking around the glen one day, and it was very subtle, but it just very gentle, softly felt like it was being like pushed into the side like this. And it was so subtle. But then not long after, there was a wee rally driver and he was coming racing around the glen. Yeah. And I felt like the, you know, people would say, well, what was it? Fresh air, but it was the energy of the glen. It was like it knew, and it was making you safe. You know, I had wee things like that, but I also had, and this is a very, very significant one, and this is something that happened whenever it would have been either Liam's, I think it was a second or third, but I think it was a second anniversary. And I remember giving myself the day off work. So I took the day off work, and my husband, who worked at the time, he took the day off work as well, and that was unlike him. And that particular day, he said to me, I want to take you up into the mountains here, right? So I had the full-time business and I wasn't a walker. I didn't have time to walk. So I remember putting, you know, a pair of wellies on and going up the back of our farm and going way, way up the mountain and getting to the top of that mountain and being like, you know, I'm not fit. Oh, I'm thinking, oh, this is it. And whoa, you know, thinking this is amazing. But as we reached the top of this farm, he actually said to me, no, no, now we're going to walk over the top of the ridge, over into like other people's farms, the top of them. And then, so we started to do this, crossing the whole ridge. And then I remember being like, oh my God, you know, I was getting tired at this stage, but it was, you know, just because this was something that hubby had initiated, you know, I'll go with it, like, you know. So I remember we got to a particular fence and he was helping me over the fences. You know, he was helping me to get over the fences. And this particular fence, this is a farm that his family have owned for a long time, and it's called Jemima's. And so this is, so it's, you had to go over a couple of people's other farms to get back to another farm that my husband would have. And I'll never forget this, Eimear. Like this was like sacred. This was sacred. What happened next? So he had taken me over the fence and we were starting to walk down the mountain. And as this was happening, it was like this feeling was inside me, and this feeling was like, oh my God, it was just a feeling. And it was pure and utter peace, pure peace. And I remember, and you can imagine, I'm getting this feeling, this peace. And it's like, and I'm like, you know, and I remember, and I couldn't keep it in. So we're walking, and all of a sudden to my husband, I says, I couldn't keep it in any longer. Oh my God, the pace, the pace. Can you feel the pace like this? And he just sort of looked at me, and we were walking, and all of a sudden we just came to a standstill, right? And we came to a standstill because in the hills that we live in, there's hidden hollows. And we were on top of one of these hollows. And it was like all of a sudden I could feel all the people. I could feel this race. I'm going to call it a race of people. And it was like, I remember actually, you know, and I remember just looking at my husband and saying, I can feel all the people. It was like a gathering, but it was like people. And what I'm going to say to you, or whatever it was that I sensed that day, it wasn't like the people from just a couple of 100 years ago. It wasn't that sort of feeling. This was this was just like something else. It felt like so ancient. I can't pinpoint it. It felt like thousands and thousands, it felt like very, very ancient. So you can imagine that day, we went down and my mom, he never said much, he just sort of looked at me now and again. He gave me a wee glance as we were walking, and then, later on that day, he told me, that was a place as a young man, if he felt a bit down, he liked to go there. But it's the part of him, Eimear, that, it was the part of him that knew there's something. Because he wouldn't be like, I would be quite spiritual now, and I would be quite, my connection's very open now, from somebody who wasn't spiritual to very spiritual. But, even, and I think, this is what happens everybody that comes to Ireland, that we have this sense of a belonging, like this belonging to something that's so beautiful, something that's so ancient, something that's home. There's something there. So that, this was like one of like an experience that happened that, you're changed. And to me, and I think ever since then, this is why I called them the sacred Sperrins. Like most people probably call them the Sperrins, but for me, they're the sacred Sperrins.
Wow. And I can feel it. I can feel all you're saying. It's so heart opening because you are the embodiment of the sacredness of the Sperrins and the experiences and the knowing and your energetic ancient connection with these lands.
Mm.
And I want to honor you as well, Kerry, for speaking and sharing your experience with your divine son, your divine child, Liam, and gifting us your words and your deep, deep experience. I really want to honor you for speaking that and sharing his wisdom with us. Yeah. And all of your knowings, the knowing of the mother, your knowing with the windows and with Liam and where he is resting now with his ancestors, your ancestors, is really beyond words. Really is.
Yeah. And the way that it was his birthday, and it does, so much of my connection with the Sperrins is all related to Liam. And and what I say, I'll just mention this about Liam as well. When I think it was 16, I always say 15, 16, but I think it was 16. And I don't know why this happened. And I was living in the Isle of Man at this stage. And I had a wee experience where, I came across the name Liam for the first time. And this person who was called Liam, I didn't know him. I seen him from a distance, and I knew a wee bit about him. I knew that his family were originally from Ireland, and I knew that very sadly his father had committed suicide. But this is all I knew of this person from a distance who was a bit older than me, but I never actually, don't even think, the way like you're young and you might sort of like have a crush on somebody or think, oh, they look nice, but you don't make a move or, I was actually going out with somebody else. But, I wouldn't have had the confidence and he was, but I just noticed, right? And it's so interesting the way life does this, that there are key moments or things that happen that plant seeds in us. So I remember then, thinking if I ever have a boy, I'll call him Liam. And that's where that came from. And so all them years later, so I had my beautiful daughters first. And, you know, I remember after I'd had the daughters actually, and I never knew with any of my children what I was having. And I remember whenever I was having my third thinking, oh, the boy would be nice. But I remember thinking, you know, well, if it's a girl, that's me done. I'm finished. Like, I'm not going for another one for a, you know. But then I had named our daughters, and whenever it came to, it was supposed to be Sean, my husband, that was to name the next baby, to be fair. And then what happened, happened. And I remember whenever my husband went to name, I asked him, well, what are you going to call him? And he said the name of my brother, which he wasn't thinking of my brother, right? But he was thinking of like a great granddad sort of thing. So he said this name, and I, you know, the way, like, think about this. Would you want your being called after your brother? Would you want, you know? So instinctively to me, Eimear, it was like, as soon as I heard it, it was like, that's not right. You know, so I remember saying to him, I says, do you mind if I name our baby? And, you know, like, what could he say? Because, like, that was very, you know, a very powerful, I'm not going to talk about it in this one, but that was a very powerful experience and a divine and mystical experience for me when I actually physically gave birth to him in the room, what happened. And so this had all happened. He had witnessed it. And then he said this, and I remember saying, you know, and he, of course, he was going to let me, after everything he'd witnessed me go through, name the baby. And I said instantly, Liam. I'm calling him Liam. And his name, Liam, and this is a big part of who and what he is, love, L-I am, love, I am. So it's been, you know, this has been confirmed to me as he got older as well. This is what he is through another mystical experience. I can go on about mystical experiences all day, but
You're
we'll keep
writing
it
a
to the
book, aren't you?
Sperrins. But he came in. He came in into, I'm not just going to say my life, this whole area, his something about his life force is connected with that deep love, that wisdom that you have acknowledged. It's real. Yeah.
It's so beautiful and so moving. I can feel the emotion running through me, and for this love, this embodiment of love that chose you to birth him on these lands. It's so powerful. Love, I am. Thank you for sharing that, and the love of the land and the experiences. It's like ineffable, you know, it's beyond words, isn't it? When what you've experienced, and when people come to the sacred Sperrins, what they then feel energetically and experience. Would you like to share any more about the Croí, the love aspect of your experiences, of your story and the story of the Sperrins that are so interconnected?
The heart. That's the Croí, is the heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
The heart is this beautiful connection of peace. It's When you have really peaceful, deep experiences, it can be very, it can be hard to put into words for people, because it's like a centering. So this is what I would say about our connection with land in general, that it brings us back to our center. And it allows for, the heart allows for all things. So I'm sort of thinking of this like the landscape, like the elements that are around us. So we witness this in our landscape through our eyes, our window, our soul. We witness this on the outer, but we also live this on the inner. Like the elements are alive inside us as much as a reflection on the outside. And for me, the Croí, the heart, is, no matter what's going on in our environment, there's something sacred within us that can't be, it can't be taken away. It can't be. This is why the heart is so important. This is why, we need to go into nature and connect as much as we can, because I am aware as well, sometimes people on the earth, they mightn't have as much nature around them, but there is a force of an element always around people. You wouldn't be here, you wouldn't be on the earth if air wasn't around you and you weren't taking it into your lungs. So there's something about the mountain within, the like even if you go back to the library, that the mountain is the library. So it's like our genetic code, like our DNA, if you think of it like that. When you make these connections with your heart and nature as well, you become more alive. It opens your heart up. It opens your heart up, because it's like whenever you're doing your walks and you're looking into the center of a flower or the beauty of a leaf or a spiral, it opens your heart. Like, it can't be a coincidence, the heart chakra is green. It's just so worth, people remembering that you are your heart, and I think that's what, our nature does for us, our Sperrins. And our ancient people were more connected with this, because, the thing that I would wonder sometimes as well, and I know you've been to Ireland as well, and you've seen like our Begmore stone circles and some of the ancient sites. There's many ancient sites around this area of Ireland. And quite often I would think of this area sort of like the hidden Tara, it's not been uncovered yet, because even with the Begmore stone circles, they were only uncovered in the late 30s, 40s. They were under the peat. So there's like a softness to the land as well that has protected well, I'm going to say like the DNA coding or the connection or something, if that makes sense. This like if you think of like that there's a protective element as well. It's the heart's a big one. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can hear it in your voice as well when you speak of the softness and that magic that these ancient sites like the Begmore stones, oh my goodness, and they were protected for so long until it was time for their glory and magic to be revealed. And there's also that in your voice that I feel the quality. It's quite hypnotic actually when you speak, and captivating. And again, I'll come back to that. It's like you are such a representative, a frequency of the land upon which you live. Yeah, it's very powerful. And I know you have a free gift for people to support people to connect with Coney Glen and the Sperrins. Would you like to say anything about your free gift?
It's a wee PowerPoint slide that I put together that there's a lot of actual imagery in it. And it's the imagery because it's like I don't actually feel like it is me. I feel like it's the land. You keep saying but I feel it's the land. And I feel like it's the land that feeds us, and it can convey so much more than I can. So there's maybe a few wee words in it, but it's just like a wee taster so people can feel the magic, the essence of what is actually encapsulated in the Sperrin Mountains. That's what it is, and I hope everybody really enjoys it. And the other thing I'll mention, but I haven't got it totally ready to go yet, but years ago I was after a trip I had to Peru with their landscapes. I received a lot of deep, unexpected healing. Like the mountains of Peru really spoke to me and really, and whenever I come back from that experience, I would have put pen to paper. And the way I would say it to you, Eimear, is it's nearly like it wrote itself. It was just time. It was time for whatever was within to go to paper. And so I eventually, for anybody who would be interested or want to know more, I will eventually have my book Rainbow Birther. It'll be there down the line somewhere. Yeah.
That's amazing. I cannot wait for your book. And I'm so grateful that you're sharing your story, the depth and breadth of your story with all of us. Yeah. And one aspect that I was going to allude to as well was the dark skies part of your title.
Yeah. And that's what I was started to talk about. This is me all over. I get distracted, go down different roads and lanes. I'm a very good Irish person. You know the way there's roads everywhere. That is me. Because whenever I was mentioning about, that's what I wanted to actually say to you about the Begmore stone circles, and you've so many ancient sites. But like, where is the research? You know, like whenever we're in Egypt or whatever, they know exactly what they align to. But what did our sacred sites align to? And this is what I'll say about, there is something so spectacular whenever you view like the stars from within the mountains. It's nearly like they become intensified, the planets, and you're watching them dance around your home. It's nearly, it's nearly like you can touch them. And the dark skies, they were, I think it was about 2020, I'm remembering right, because it was very close to the COVID time that the OHM Centre had been built. But I worked with alongside, supported an organisation for a lot of years who got the dark sky status recognised in our area. And it's such an important part of us as beings that this light infuses or just our being. It infuses our being. Like I know at the start of this year, Eimear, I had an experience. It was the day after Christmas Day, it was Boxing Day. And my daughter was heading away to England, and I went to my front door in the early hours of the morning, and there was the planet Venus just coming, and I was like, oh, and taken towards. I walked, and as I walked out towards the planet Venus, I was like, oh, because I could see my shadow right in front of me, the length of it, and I was like, oh, I was a bit, what's going on? And then as I was at my gate and turned, behind me was the full moon. It was a huge full moon. And so I was between these two planetary bodies. And this has actually happened to me in the Sperrins on the equinoxes as well, going up our mountain where I've been between the sun and the moon. And it nearly feels like it's nearly like an activation or something. It's you can actually visually you can feel it whenever it happens. And this is another reason why it's so important that our sacred sites and places, our ancient sites, stay sacred. They were sacred for a reason. These were chosen deliberately. They're not just put here willy-nilly. That the people were connected to the essence of of the life force energy. So that's a very important thing about our dark skies. And like we know all over the world, like people can't see the stars. And even in places like Spain and certain areas in France, it's become so built. People are not getting that infusion. And we need all parts of ourselves. It's sort of like, I know this sounds a bit bizarre, but if you think of your hair, well, no, maybe that's not a good one because some people are bald. But I was going to say, if you think of your hair as stores, you wouldn't feel like you were embodying yourself, but hairs are like antenna as well. I don't know if you've ever heard that, but it's a bit like antenna. So it's like disconnecting. Or even if you think of like holy pictures, the stars are around to be in I was going to say harmony.
Yeah.
If you think of Mother Mary, yeah, it's a very
Right.
important one, and long, long may it prosper here, the beautiful dark sky.
Yeah, that is beautiful. Wow. Yeah, it's like celestial upgrades almost, and that acknowledgement that we have come from the stars. We are the stars as well as the earth, and back to the elementals again, the elements and the Croí and the heart. And then you mentioned the life force, which is getting so much stronger in us now, the Nyarth. you know, it's like heart and yarth. It's like that life force that's so important.
Yeah.
Wow,
Thank you
Kerry.
so much. Thank you, Eimear,
Yeah.
for doing the work that you're doing to
Mm.
bring that awareness of the sacredness of this island. And this is a really, really vital and important time to be doing this because it has become so zoomed in on by big nationals and multinationals that, like, my feeling on it would be if they get their way, there will be no Ireland. And the other thing I'll say is Ireland is such a tiny, tiny country. Like, if the rivers are poisoned in one place, it's through the whole. Yeah. So thank you so much, Eimear, for bringing this now. You know that the more people that and the more people that love an area, and I think you can love from a distance as well, but love is received. If we give that love, it will be received in some format. So just everybody keep bringing their Croí, keep
Yeah.
keep it coming, keep her lit.
Yeah. Yeah. And what it brings me back to Liam, love I am, and how healing our love, our individual and collective love can be for humanity and our cosmos and earth.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kerry, for all you are, for all you share, and for inviting us to be with you in the sacred Sperrins today. It's been so gorgeous.
Thank you.
And to everyone watching, we will see you again soon. Bye for now.